My name is Sam Vaknin, and I'm the author of Malignant Self-Love, Narcissism Revisited. Many people complain of the incredible, deceptive powers of the narcissist. They find themselves involved with narcissists, emotionally, in business, or otherwise, before they have had a chance to discover their true character and nature. So, shocked by the later revelation that their partner or spouse or mate is a narcissist, they mourn their inability to separate from the narcissist and their erstwhile gullibility. Narcissists are an elusive breed, hard to spot, harder to pinpoint, impossible to capture. Even an experienced mental health diagnostician with unmitigated access to the record and to the person examined would find it fiendishly difficult to determine with any degree of certainty whether someone suffers from a full-fledged narcissistic personality disorder or merely possesses narcissistic traits, narcissistic style, personality structure, character, or a narcissistic overlay superimposed on another mental health problem, such as borderline personality disorder. Moreover, it is important to distinguish between traits and behavior patterns that are independent of the patient's cultural social context, in other words, traits or character features which are inherent or idiosyncratic, and reactive patterns or conformity to cultural and social mores and norms. Reactions to severe life crises or circumstances are also often characterized by transient pathological narcissism. So, narcissism rears its ugly head in a variety of contexts, and the diagnostician should be attuned and on his toes. When a person belongs to a society or culture that has often been described as narcissistic by scholars such as Theodore Millon and social thinkers such as Christopher Lasch, how much of his behavior can be attributed to his milieu, and which of these traits are really his? The Narcissistic Personality Disorder is rigorously defined in the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual with a set of strict criteria and differential diagnosis. Narcissism is regarded by many scholars to be an adaptative strategy, what is called healthy narcissism. It is considered pathological in the clinical sense only when it becomes a rigid personality structure replete with a series of primitive defense mechanisms such as splitting, projection, projective identification, and intellectualization, and when it leads to dysfunctions in one or more areas of the patient's life. Pathological narcissism is the art of deception. The narcissist projects a false self and manages all his social interactions through this concocted fictional construct. When the narcissist reveals his true colors, it is usually far too late. His victims are unable to separate from him. They are frustrated by this acquired helplessness, and they are angry at themselves for having thus failed to see through the narcissist early on. But the narcissist does emit subtle, almost subliminal signals, presenting signs or symptoms, even in the first or casual encounter. Let's review a few of these signs. A haughty body language. The narcissist adopts a physical posture which implies and exudes an air of superiority, seniority, hidden powers, mysteriousness, amused indifference, etc. Though the narcissist usually maintains sustained and piercing eye contact, he often refrains from physical proximity. He maintains his territory. The narcissist takes part in social interactions, even mere banter, condescendingly, from a position of supremacy and faux magnanimity and largesse. He is forever patronizing, but he rarely mingles socially, and he prefers to remain the observer or the lone wolf. There are entitlement markers. The narcissist immediately asks for special treatment of some kind, not to wait his turn, to have a longer or a shorter therapeutic session, to talk directly to authority figures and not to their secretaries or assistants, to be granted special payment terms, to enjoy custom-tailored arrangements, to be served first, etc., etc. Narcissist is the one who, vocally and demonstratively demands the undivided attention of the head waiter in a restaurant, or monopolizes the hostess, or latches on to celebrities in a party. The narcissist reacts with rage and indignantly when denied his wishes, and when he is treated equally with others whom he inevitably deems inferior to himself. Then there is idealization and devaluation. The narcissist instantly idealizes or devalues his or her interlocutor. This depends on how the narcissist appraises the potential his converser has as a narcissistic source of supply. The narcissist flatters, adores, admires, and applauds the target in an embarrassingly exaggerated and profuse manner, or sulks, abuses, and humiliates them. Narcissists are polite only in the presence of a potential supply source, but they are unable to sustain even perfunctory civility, and they fast deteriorate to barbs and thinly veiled hostility, to verbal or other violent displays of abuse, rage attacks, temper tantrums, and cold detachment. The narcissist has this membership posture. The narcissist always tries to belong, yet at the very same time he maintains his stance as an outsider. The narcissist seeks to be admired for his ability to integrate and ingratiate himself without investing the efforts commensurate with such an undertaking. For instance, if the narcissist talks to a psychologist, the narcissist first states emphatically that he never studied psychology. He then proceeds to make seemingly effortless use of obscure professional terms, thus demonstrating to the psychologist that he had mastered the discipline all the same as an autodidact, which proves that he is exceptionally intelligent and introspective. In general, the narcissist always prefers show-off to substance. One of the most effective methods of exposing a narcissist is by trying to delve deeper. The narcissist is shallow, a pond pretending to be an ocean. He likes to think of himself as a Renaissance man, a jack of all trades. The narcissist never admits to ignorance in any field, yet typically he is ignorant of all fields. The narcissist is surprisingly easy to see through. It is very easy to penetrate the gloss and veneer of the narcissist's self-proclaimed omniscience. The narcissist constantly brags about his autobiography, which is frequently false or at the very least embellished. Narcissist brags incessantly. His speech is peppered with I, my, myself, and mine, and this is known as pronoun density. He describes himself as intelligent, or rich, or modest, or intuitive, or creative, but always excessively, implausibly, and extraordinarily so. The narcissist's biography sounds unusually rich and complex, his achievements incommensurate with his age, education, or renown. Yet his actual condition is evidently and demonstrably incompatible with his claims. Very often the narcissist lies, or his fantasies are easily discernible. He always name drops and appropriates other people's experiences and accomplishments as his own. The narcissist has an emotion-free language. He likes to talk about himself and only about himself. He is not interested in others or what they have to say unless they constitute potential sources of supply and in order to obtain this said supply. The narcissist acts bored, disdainful, even angry, if he feels that people are intruding on his precious time and attention, and thus abusing him. In general, the narcissist is very impatient, easily bored, with strong attention deficits, unless and until he is the topic of discussion and the center of attention. One can publicly dissect all aspects of the intimate life of the narcissist without repercussions, providing the discourse is not emotionally tinted. When asked to relate directly to his emotions, the narcissist intellectualizes, rationalizes, speaks about himself in the third person and in a detached scientific tone, or composes a narrative with a fictitious character in it, suspiciously autobiographical. Narcissists like to refer to themselves as robots in mechanical terms, as efficient automata or machines. Then there is seriousness and a sense of intrusion and coercion. The narcissist is dead serious about himself. He may possess a subtle, wry and riotous sense of humor, scathing and cynical, but rarely is he self-deprecating. The narcissist regards himself as being on a constant mission, whose importance is cosmic and whose consequences are global. If the narcissist is a scientist, he is always in the throes of revolutionizing science. If he is a journalist, he is in the middle of the greatest story ever. If he is a novelist, he is on his way to a Booker or a Pulitzer or a Nobel Prize. This self-misperception is not amenable to lightheadedness or self-effacement. The narcissist is really hurt and insulted, narcissistic injury, when he is criticized, confronted, or when people disagree with him. Even the most innocuous remarks or acts are interpreted by the narcissist as belittling, intruding, or coercive. The narcissist's time is more valuable than other people's. Therefore, it cannot be wasted on unimportant matters and daily chores, such as mere banter or going out for a walk. Any suggested help, advice, or concerned inquiry are immediately cast by the narcissist as intentional humiliation, implying that the narcissist is in need of help and counsel, and thus imperfect and less than omnipotent. Any attempt to set an agenda is to the narcissist an intimidating act of enslavement. In this sense, the narcissist is both schizoid and paranoid, and often entertains ideas of reference. He believes that he is the topic of mocking and ridicule behind his back. So these, the lack of empathy, the aloofness, the disdain, the sense of entitlement, the constricted sense of humor, the unequal treatment, and the paranoia render the narcissist a social misfit. The narcissist is able to provoke in his milieu, even in his casual acquaintances, in his psychotherapists, the strongest, most avid and furious hatred and revulsion. To his shock, indignation, and consternation, he invariably induces in others unbridled aggression. The narcissist is perceived to be asocial at best, and often antisocial. And this perhaps is the strongest presenting symptom. One feels ill at ease in the presence of a narcissist for no apparent reason. No matter how charming, intelligent, thought-provoking, outgoing, easygoing, and sociable, gregarious the narcissist is, he fails to secure the sympathy of others, a sympathy he is never ready, willing, or able to reciprocate. The processes of obtaining, preserving, accumulating, and recalling narcissistic supply take place in the pathological narcissistic space. This is largely an imaginary environment, a comfort zone invented by the narcissist. But it has clear geographical and physical boundaries. The narcissist's home, his workplace, a neighborhood, a city, a political party, the narcissist's church, or even his country. The narcissist strives to maximize the amount of narcissistic supply that he derives from people within the pathological narcissistic space. There, in this space, he seeks admiration, adoration, approval, applause, or as a minimum, attention. If not fame, then notoriety. If he cannot be loved, he'd rather be feared. If he doesn't have real achievements, then contrived or imagined ones. If not real distinction, then concocted and forced uniqueness. The narcissist's pathological narcissistic space incorporates people whose role is to applaud, admire, adore, approve, and attend to the narcissist. Extracting narcissistic supply from these people calls for emotional and cognitive investments, stability, perseverance, long-term presence, attachment, collaboration, emotional agility, people skills, and so on. So very few narcissists succeed to maintain long-term pathological narcissistic spaces, as we will see in the continuation of this video. Let me elaborate. The narcissist tries to modify his environment to make it conducive to his narcissistic needs. The narcissist creates a pathological narcissistic space. As I said, this may be a geographical area, but it can also be a group of people, or even an abstract field of knowledge in which the narcissistic pathology attains its maximum expression and value. The false self's boundaries overlap the boundaries of the pathological narcissistic space. This space becomes the hunting grounds and the domain of the false self. And this domain is typically confined to the workplace, the family residence, and to a few other select locations: school, university, the homes of some friends, a political party headquarters, a club, the neighborhood bar. This is typical of most narcissists, but some narcissists use fame and celebrity to enlarge their pathological narcissistic space. The various defense mechanisms, an integral part of the false self, expand together with the false self to operate in the entire territory of the pathological narcissistic space. Still, pay attention. The existence of the pathological narcissistic space is independent of the existence of sources of narcissistic supply. Put differently, the very existence of the pathological narcissistic space and its characteristics are not altered or affected by the fluctuations in narcissistic supply, which are a function of the availability of various types of narcissistic supply sources. A narcissist, for instance, can cease to be famous and still feel a narcissistic pathology throughout the pathological narcissistic space, though not outside its borders. He can still feel famous within the pathological narcissistic space, despite the fact that reality is different. The pathological narcissistic space constantly consumes and drains narcissistic supply. It has the function of a negative accumulator or a sink of narcissistic supply. Pathological primary and secondary supply sources balance this negative accumulation by constantly providing the narcissist with narcissistic supply and positive accumulation. In other words, sources of supply pump narcissistic supply to the narcissist uses this supply, consumes it, like a drug, within the pathological narcissistic space, until it's all gone, and then he's out hunting for new supply. The pathological narcissistic space is, therefore, to summarize, a geographical area, a group of people, or an abstract field of knowledge in which the narcissistic pathology reaches its full expression and effectiveness. The pathological space is really a territorially expanded false self. The expansion is achieved via sources of narcissistic supply. What about narcissists who are really famous, really powerful, and real celebrities? What about narcissists in positions of authority? Their level of fame and notoriety is achieved through the media in any given territory, or by projecting power or wisdom or wealth onto a territorially bound or otherwise group of people. The pathological narcissistic space has a few characteristics. First of all, it is ubiquitous or pervasive. The space applies throughout the entirety of a homogeneous territory, political, social, functional, cultural, or linguistic unit with clear boundaries. Pathological narcissistic space has a critical mass. It is independent of the quality and identity of supply sources. Example, the narcissist does not have to be famous among a specific elite group of people. Any publicity and any kind of recognition will do, providing that a certain quantitative critical mass is reached. The pathological narcissistic space is size indifferent. It does not have to have a minimum size. It is a derivative of primary sources of supply, but it cannot be derived from secondary sources of supply. Spouses, mates, friends, loved ones, they cannot define and derive and create a pathological narcissistic space for the narcissist. Only primary sources, wealth, fame, possession of objects, celebrity, the power. Only these can help create and derive a pathological narcissistic supply.
I don't think that. I believe that there are two parts to the pastoral title. There is the position, wherein I can say, I am the pastor, therefore you follow me. Look at the polity of the church, look at the book that is listed, all it says is, I am the boss. You follow me. And I would like to say this categorically, state this categorically. I am trying to resist the urge to change anybody. The reason that I'm trying to change somebody is because I don't like them. That's the truth. When you take a person and I deal with the person, there is a point of dislike. In fact, you see this every day in our ministry. When I'm confronting somebody and I need to be forceful, you have to admit there is an element of dislike. Okay? I know we are told that we have to operate in love, but in the way how we do it, there is a point in time when there is just this element of dislike. That I would much rather see this person act in the way that I would like them to act. Okay? That is that element of dislike. But of course, the teaching is to love. And I try to limit this. Where used to be, it was my daily thing. Especially, back then, the ministry was Wild Wild West.
Cheerio, Pastor Jones.
Howdy, Pastor James.
So what's been going on in your church as of late? Being a pastor is no easy task, is it? We are so busy serving others that we sometimes don't even have time for ourselves.
You can say that again, Pastor James. Pastoring is no easy task, especially when you are shepherding unruly sheep. I'm glad you brought that up, because I need your advice about something. I have been having some major problems with the troublemakers in my church.
Troublemakers? Oh yes. We all have those troublemakers. The gossips. The cliques. And those who try to divide the church. We just have to keep praying for them and steering them in the right direction.
No. Those types of people I don't mind. I'm talking about these disobedient ones. They do not obey me. They do what they want to do. Do they not understand that I'm the head? God has placed me as the high priest of that house, and yet they will not obey me.
I believe that there are two parts to the pastoral title. There is the position, wherein I can say, I am the pastor, therefore you follow me. Look at the polity of the church, look at the book that is listed, all it says is, I am the boss. You follow me.
Not clear on what you mean. Do you mean that they disobey the Bible? The commands of Jesus? The sound doctrine that we read of in the epistles written by Paul, Jude, John, and James?
No. They follow all the Bible rules, but they just will not obey me. I just don't know what to do, Pastor James. I'm fresh out of ideas. I've already threatened them with saying that God will punish them, but that doesn't shake them. So I'm thinking of kicking them out of the church before the year is out. I do not have time for disobedient members. I have enough on my plate as it is.
What? Kicking them out of the church? For what? I'm confused. First you tell me that they are Christians who abide by the whole Bible, but in the same breath, you say they are disobedient troublemakers.
Yeah. They are great Christians, great parents, great employees, great spouses, and great citizens of our country, but I need a congregation of people who will do whatever I say. When I say jump, I want to hear how high. When I say run, I want to hear how fast. When I say pay, I want to hear how much. And 99% of my flock do that.
And I would like to say this categorically, state this categorically. I am trying to resist the urge to change anybody. The reason that I'm trying to change somebody is because I don't like them. That's the truth. When you take a person and I deal with the person, there is a point of dislike. In fact, you see this every day in our ministry. When I'm confronting somebody and, I need to be forceful, you have to admit there is an element of dislike. Okay? I know we are told that we have to operate in love, but in the way how we do it, there is a point in time when there is just this element of dislike. That I would much rather see this person act in the way that I would like them to act. Okay? There is that element of dislike. But of course, the teaching is to love. And I try to limit this. Where used to be, it was my daily thing.
But it's that 1% I can't stand.
Pastor Jones, I'm not understanding. You're telling me that they are good Christians, which to me means that they are in right standing with God, and that they are living lifestyles that please God. And we both know that God has no problem with anyone who obeys his commands. So I can't understand why you have a problem with that.
Their problem is not that they disobey God. My problem is that they disobey me. Here's just one example. I have 5 Sunday services, and I command all my members to attend each one and to be on time. And I command all my members to give $20 at each of those services. And so, I expect at least $100 from each member every Sunday. But that disrespectful 1% keeps coming up with excuses such as I have to be able to afford groceries to feed my kids. Or, I have to work Sunday afternoons. All types of dumb excuses. What I don't understand is that everyone in the community thinks so highly of me. Everyone respects me. Everyone adores me. Everyone loves to do what I say. So I can't stand it when those few members do not. I also command all my members to dress a certain way, to praise a certain way, and to talk a certain way. And most of them obey. But it's just that 1% that can't get it through their thick skulls. I can't stand it. It's driving me crazy.
Pastor Jones, I'm going to be honest with you. That sounds like a personal problem. You are not the boss of these men and women. They are grown men and women who can do as they please, just so long as they obey God and the American law. You are starting to sound like a narcissist. You seem to be more concerned with them obeying you than you are with them obeying God. You say that 99% of your membership obey you. But do they obey God? Let me make this clear to you before you destroy yourself and that church. God did not call you to be a pastor so that you can control people and to have them serve you. As their shepherd, you are to be serving them more if anything. Not the other way around.
I beg to differ. I'm the high priest of the church. They need to do whatever I say.
The reason that I'm trying to change somebody is because I don't like them. That's the truth. When you take a person and I deal with the person, there is a point of dislike. In fact, you see this every day in our ministry. When I'm confronting somebody and, I need to be forceful, you have to admit there is an element of dislike. Okay? I know we are told that we have to operate in love, but in the way how we do it, there is a point in time when there is just this element of dislike. That I would much rather see this person act in the way that I would like them to act. Okay? That is that element of dislike. But of course, the teaching is to love. And I try to limit this. Where it used to be, it was my daily thing. You know,
God called me, not them.
Wow. You are so mistaken. Do you not know what it means to be a good shepherd? Let me explain it to you this way. My father was a shepherd. When I observed him with his flock, the sheep were never surrounding, worshipping, and serving him. Instead, he was serving them. He would feed them and give them water. He would protect them from wolves. He would shelter them in adverse weather conditions. The sheep were not bringing him water, paying him money, showering him with gifts, and flattering him with praise. You are confused about your role. At my church, I'm a good shepherd. I tell my members only what God wants them to know. I make time to meet with them if they are having a problem. I explain what the scriptures mean. I teach them sound doctrine. And as the overseer, I tell them what I see going on wrong in their spiritual life. As a shepherd, my father did not beat, starve, or get rid of the sheep because they would not obey him. And it was because he knew that his role was to serve the sheep, not to have his sheep serve him.
But aren't I supposed to be the head of the church?
You see, that's your problem. You do not know your role and position in the church. You treat your church as if it is your kingdom, empire, or monarchy.
I don't think that. I believe that there are two parts to a pastoral title. There is the position, wherein I can say, I am the pastor, therefore you follow me. Look at the polity of the church, look at the book that is listed. All it says is, I am the boss. You follow me. And to some pastors, that's how they do it, and that's absolutely correct. Yeah, that's absolutely correct. I'm not denigrating those pastors that are talented, who have Superman capabilities. That's okay.
Jesus is the only head of the church. He just entrusted people like you, me, and other pastors to oversee things, to tell the other believers what they need to hear, and to redirect them from bad behavior. You are not supposed to be pushing your own private agenda in the church. There is only one agenda for all the churches of God. We are to give God the glory, follow his commands, live a holy lifestyle, love one another, and be the salt and light of this dark world. God did not call you to be a pastor so that he could make you a tyrant or king over a bunch of people so that you could boss them around like servants. Jesus did not die on that cross to make you the ruler. He is king. He is Lord. He is the only high priest. He is the only head. We are all just body parts to that head. These are grown men and women. They do not have to do everything you say. They have to do what the Bible says, what their boss says, and what the American law says. And the wives are to be obedient to their own husbands. So, Pastor Jones, if you can say that they are obedient to Jesus' commands, and that they love like God told them to love, you need to leave them be.
Maybe you're right, Pastor James. All my other pastor friends are very controlling of their members. They get irate when their members don't show up to every single prayer and Bible study service and picnic and revival and event. They even kick their members out for not regularly attending the extra services. They get mad when the members don't give them a lot of money for Good Shepherd days and church anniversaries. I need to repent. Even Jesus did not come to be served. He came to serve.
That's correct. Just remember, these men and women have personal lives apart from the church. They have families. They have hobbies. They have jobs. They have friends. They cannot be at your every beck and call. You are to help them be successful in the other areas of their life. Not try to totally erase the other areas of their life. And certainly not use them as your narcissistic supply in order to feed your ego and insecurities. As long as they are doing God's will, do not kick them out of the church. Do not harass them. Do not call them disobedient. Do not call them troublemakers. Do not threaten them. If God is pleased with their behavior, then you have nothing to complain about. Amen.
Amen.
So how come this disorder has hitherto been largely ignored? How come there is such a dearth of research and literature regarding this crucial family of mental health pathologies? Even mental health practitioners are woefully unaware of pathological narcissism and unprepared, not ready to assist its victims. Well, the sad answer is that narcissism meshes well with our culture. Our civilization itself is narcissistic. There is a kind of narcissistic background radiation which permeates every social and cultural interaction. It is hard to distinguish the pathological narcissist from the merely self-assertive, self-confident, self-promoting, eccentric, ambitious, or highly individualistic person, which are so common in our society. Hard sell, greed, envy, self-centeredness, exploitativeness, diminished empathy, they are all socially condoned features of Western civilization. Our society is atomized, the outcome of individualism gone awry. Our society encourages narcissistic leadership and role models. The substructures of our culture, institutionalized religion, political parties, civic organizations, the media, corporations, they are all suffused with narcissism and pervaded by its pernicious outcomes. The very ethos of materialism and capitalism upholds certain narcissistic traits, such as reduced empathy, ambitiousness, exploitation, a sense of entitlement, and grandiose fantasies, which are euphemistically called vision. Narcissists are aided, abetted, and facilitated by four types of people and institutions: the adulators, the blissfully ignorant, the self-deceiving, and those deceived by the narcissist. The adulators are fully aware of the nefarious and damaging aspects of the narcissist's behavior, but they believe that they are more than balanced by benefits. Benefits to themselves, benefits to the collective, or to society at large. The adulators engage in an explicit trade-off between some of their principles and values and their personal profit or the greater good. They believe that narcissists can and do contribute to society. They seek to help the narcissist, promote his agenda, shield him from harm, connect him with like-minded people, do his chores for him, and in general create the conditions and the environment for the narcissist's success. This kind of alliance is especially prevalent in political parties, the government, multinationals, religious organizations, and other hierarchical collectives. Then there are the blissfully ignorant. These are simply unaware of the bad sides of the narcissist and make sure that they remain unaware. They look the other way. They pretend that the narcissist's behavior is normative, or they turn a blind eye to his egregious misbehavior. They are classic deniers of reality. Some of these blissfully ignorant maintain a generally rosy outlook premised on the inbred benevolence of mankind. Others simply cannot tolerate dissonance, conflict, and discord. They prefer to live in a fantastic world where everything is harmonious and smooth and evil is banished. They react with rage to any information to the contrary and block it out instantly. This type of denial is well evidenced in dysfunctional families, for instance, where the mother would cover up for the father and deny any wrongdoing on his part. Then there are the self-deceivers. These people are fully aware of the narcissist's transgressions and malice, his indifference, exploitativeness, lack of empathy, and rampant grandiosity, but they prefer to displace the causes or the effects of such misconduct on his part. They attribute his pathology to externalities. He's going through a rough patch, or they judge it to be temporary. They even go as far as accusing the victim for the narcissist's lapses or for defending themselves. They say she provoked him into abusing her. In a feat of cognitive dissonance, these people, the self-deceivers, deny any connection between the acts of the narcissist and their consequences. They say his wife abandoned him because she was promiscuous, not because of anything he did to her. They are swayed by the narcissist's undeniable charm, intelligence, and attractiveness. But the narcissist needs not invest resources in converting them to his cause. He does not deceive them. They are self-propelled into the abyss that is narcissism. The inverted narcissists and codependents are self-deceivers. Finally, there are the deceived. These are people or institutions or collectives deliberately taken for a premeditated ride by the narcissist. He feeds them false information, manipulates their judgment, prefers plausible scenarios to account for his indiscretions, soils the opposition, charms them, appeals to their reason or to their emotions, and promises the moon. Again, the narcissist's incontrovertible powers of persuasion and his impressive personality play a role in this predatory ritual. The deceived are especially hard to deprogram. They are often themselves encumbered with narcissistic traits and find it impossible to admit a mistake or to atone. They are likely to stay on with the narcissist to his and their bitter end. Regrettably, the narcissist rarely pays the price for his offenses. His victims pick up the tab. But even here, the malignant optimism of the abused never ceases to amaze. They still claim and believe that they can rescue the narcissist, heal the narcissist, cure the narcissist, change the narcissist with their love, their empathy. But this is La La Land. It's a kind of grandiose fantasy in the mirror, in reverse. To preserve one's mental health, one must abandon the narcissist. One must move on. Moving on is a process. It's not a decision. It's not an event. First, one has to acknowledge and accept painful reality. Such acceptance is a volcanic, shattering, agonizing series of nibbling thoughts and strong resistances. Once the battle is won, and harsh and agonizing realities are assimilated, one can move on to the learning phase. The learning phase involves labeling, educating oneself. We compare experiences, we digest, we have insights. Then we decide and we act. This is what it means to move on. Having gathered sufficient emotional sustenance, knowledge, support, and confidence, we face the battlefields of our relationships, but this time fortified and nurtured. This stage characterizes those who do not mourn, but fight, do not grieve, but replenish their self-esteem, do not hide, but seek, do not freeze, but move on. And then, of course, there is grieving. Having been betrayed and abused, we naturally grieve. We grieve for the image we had of the traitor and the abuser, the image that was so fleeting and so wrong. We mourn the damage we did to ourselves. We experience the fear of never being able to love or trust again, and we grieve this loss as well. In one stroke we lost someone we trusted and even loved. We lost our trusting and loving selves, and we lost the trust and love that we felt. We may have lost our ability to trust and love. Can anything be worse than this compounded loss? The emotional process of grieving has many phases. At first, we are dumbfounded, shocked, inert, immobile, and traumatized. We play dead to avoid our inner monsters. We are ossified in our pain, cast in the mold of our reticence and fears. Then we feel enraged, indignant, rebellious, and hateful. And following this phase, we accept. Then we cry. And then some of us learn to forgive and to pity. And this is called healing. All stages of grieving are absolutely necessary. And all of them are good for you. It is bad not to rage back, not to shame those who shamed you. To deny, to pretend, to evade is counterproductive. But it is equally bad to get fixated on our rage. Permanent grieving is the perpetuation of our abuse by other means and by ourselves. By endlessly recreating our harrowing experiences, we unwillingly collaborate with our abuser to perpetuate his or her evil deeds and misconduct. It is by moving on that we defeat our abuser, minimizing him and his importance in our lives. It is by loving and by trusting anew that we annul that which was done to us. To forgive is never to forget, but to remember is not necessarily to re-experience. And this leads us to forgiving and forgetting. Forgiving is an important capability. It does more for the forgiver than for the forgiven. But it should not be a universal, indiscriminate behavior. It is legitimate not to forgive someone. It depends, of course, on the severity or duration of what was done to you. In general, it is unwise and counterproductive to apply to life universal and immutable principles. Life is too chaotic to succumb to rigid edicts and rules. Sentences which start with the words "I never" or "I always" are not very credible, and often lead to self-defeating, self-restricting, and self-destructive behaviors. Conflicts are an important and integral part of life. One should never seek them out, but when confronted with a conflict, one should never avoid it. It is through conflicts and adversity, as much as through care and love, that we grow. Human relationships are dynamic. We must assess our friendships, partnerships, even our marriages, periodically. In and by itself, a common past is insufficient to sustain a healthy, nourishing, supportive, caring, and compassionate future in a relationship. Common memories are a necessity, but not a sufficient condition. We must gain and regain our friendships on a daily basis. We must assess and reassess our relationships on a daily basis. Human relationships are a constant test of allegiance and empathy, a test which the narcissist so often flunks and fails at miserably.
Matter of faith. There have been men, many of them, who claim to be a new Messiah. And tonight we're going to meet 3 of them, including one in the faraway Philippines who has amassed a flock, he says, numbers in the millions. Poor people who give what little they have to the man they believe is the second coming of Jesus. Bill Weir journeyed there to meet him.
Throughout the Bible, prophets, angels, and Jesus himself all promised that the Son of God would return to create heaven on earth. And throughout the ages, billions of Christians have wondered, when? But what if the second coming is here, now? There are a number of would-be messiahs who claim exactly that, and few are more physically convincing than a former Russian traffic cop named Sergei Torop. In the woods of rural Siberia, he is known as Vissarion, the teacher, and around 5,000 disciples live around him, growing their own food and feasting on his every word.
My whole body was trembling. The trembling is not coming again. Well, it's very emotional to me.
Meanwhile, in London, David Shaler says he is the true Lord of Lords, but unlike Vissarion, no one believes him.
That doesn't bother me because I was chosen by God.
The former British intelligence agent says his body was filled with the Spirit of Jesus in 2007, a conviction which intensifies on a visit to Jerusalem.
We're in the Church Holy Sepulchre, and this behind me is supposed to be the tomb of Christ. Well, I'm Christ, and I'm not in the tomb, I'm not dead yet.
But with no support, he lives in a squatter's camp outside London.
My agreement with Jesus, I don't ask for money off people. If you're the Messiah, you shouldn't be asking for money. You should have faith that God will look after you.
Prove to me that you are a son of God.
But that is not a sentiment shared by Pastor Apollo Quibeloi, the most successful of the world's self-labeled saviors.
The official coming of the Son of God was in April 13, 2005.
He was an obscure evangelist from the rural Philippines until 2005, when he announced that God had appointed him Christ on earth. His reward for a pure life. Sinful thoughts, anger, lust, any of those things. You don't experience those on a daily basis?
As a human being?
Yes.
I have already overcome all of those.
There is no apocalypse in Kibeloy's message, no rapture or final judgment. Instead, he preaches that he is the model of Christianity, and as more people follow his example, God will gradually turn the earth back into the Garden of Eden. Do you perform miracles?
For me, the greatest miracle is the changing of that spirit within.
But healing the sick, the manifestations of Jesus' powers, you're able to do that?
We have healing.
You are
healing and miracles happening.
After taking his place as the appointed son, Kibeloy's ministry has exploded. He claims to reach 6 million followers with his satellite TV network, numerous publications, private jet, and personal helicopter. All the better to avoid the bumpy road and impoverished villages that lead to the walled compound he calls the Kingdom of Jesus Christ. Here is his 5-bedroom home, surrounded by manicured gardens of imported grass. So this is your Garden of Eden.
This is what we call the Garden of Eden restored.
It's easy to see why this claim resonates in a country where 30 million endure crushing poverty with open hearts. This family lives just down the hill, next to the dump where Pastor Kibeloy's garbage is burned.
If you could be anything in the world, what would you want to be?
Go to heaven. To them, heaven really could exist inside Kibeloy's gates, and it's why hundreds line up to carry his parasol. All the workers who toil in the grinding heat of the kingdom are volunteers, here to glorify the Father.
Do you get paid for this?
Juju tells me he gets $40 a week to feed his family. Minimum wage. And like the rest of the kingdom, he's expected to give 10% back to Kibeloy. This may be the most beautiful spot in the Philippines, and it's paid for by people who live on $2 a day. So how do you justify your lifestyle? I mean, your watch could probably feed 100 families for a month.
If it's not God's will for me to have these things I have, you can take it away. It is God's will that we follow. If it is God's will for us to live like this, you know, you can have a broken heart looking at me, but what can you do?
But they get their understanding of the will of God from you.
Yeah.
And this nice young man wouldn't be holding this umbrella if he didn't believe the things you say.
For us here, we see everything as a ministry. My talent is to preach. My talent is to be a leader. Not everyone can become a preacher or have been given a talent like me to go and lead the 6 million people.
Right. But Jesus, when he walked the earth, according to the Bible, lived among lepers and prostitutes.
I live among them.
You have a private jet.
I live among them. Before I had the private jet.
You're in a walled compound with mansions.
Before this, I lived among these people. Like, for example, that jet that you're talking about. Do you know that in 1983, I had a revelation of that jet? That the Lord is going to give me that.
Yeah?
It is Him who gave me that. If it is not His will, how can I afford that?
Well... Kibeloy has been accused of kidnapping and brainwashing by the parents of at least one of his followers, but he was never charged. He insists that anyone is free to leave his flock and seal their fate for eternity. Will they go to hell?
It's up to them. They know that. So that's your will, you know. If you want to go to hell, no one will stop you. If you want to go to heaven and follow this way, no one will stop you too.
Come work with you.
Yeah.
There are 3 possibilities here. You are either the Son of God, or you're delusional, or you're a very successful con man.
I respect your point of view. But I resent what you said that your followers will say, I'm a con man with a speaking ability that I've tried to con people. That is not who I am. I'm not trying to con people. I am speaking the truth.